All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Oliver Curley, and I'm here to talk to you today about a very special topic dear to my heart, the wetlands of the Central Valley of California. All right, so the agenda. So for today, I'll go over why did I choose this topic. There's a lot that went into choosing my topic. A lot of people think lowly of the Central Valley, and sure, we've had our hiccups, but when it comes to wetlands, we've been for sure making progress, and I want to represent the valley because I'm a valley boy. And then also, I'll talk about the history of wetlands in California. This is where I really get into it. There's a lot of information I didn't even know, that even when I'm driving by it every single day when I'm back home, I pass these wetlands, and some I didn't even know existed because at this point they don't exist. And then I'll talk about when these wetlands started declining. Why did they start declining? Did people seem to care at first? Um, no, of course they didn't, because back then rarely anyone ever cared about the environment. So, and even today, some people don't. But I'll touch on that. And then, did these people know the ecological benefits of these wetlands? And then after that, I'll answer the question right here where it says, are wetlands in the Central Valley making a comeback? Um, you bet they are. There's a lot of stuff going into it, such as management plans, monitoring, people collecting data. So I'll finish on that, and then, of course, references. All right, so let's get started. All right, so why this topic? I grew up in the Central Valley my whole life, and seeing a wetland in Fresno is usually hard to come by. I grew up more north in the Sierra foothills of California, so there were wetlands up there, but relatively not as common, and especially in the drought, it's been super dry. And then, like I said earlier, some people give the valley a bad rap. So I wanted to show you guys that even though most of the wetlands are gone, we're making improvements, and there's a lot of wetland restoration. All right, so history. When did the wetlands in the Central Valley first start declining? That's the big question. First, I'll start off with a little background information. According to an article published in High Country News, over the last century, wetlands in the Central Valley of California have declined by over 90%. 90%, that's a huge number. According to the book, The Fall and Rise of the Wetlands of California's Great Central Valley, the losses were in the permanent and seasonal wetlands of the Central Valley, which had declined from at least 4 million acres to approximately 379,000 acres. And then before the 1800s, as you can tell from this graphic right here, wetland cover was much more abundant than it is today. As you can see, all the green in the Central Valley right there is made up of wetland. And then on lands covering circa 1999, there's pretty much none. They started declining in the 1800s, and a key thing happened in the 1800s, and that was the arrival of European settlers. They were particularly land hungry. And then for hundreds of years before the Europeans arrived, the valley was rich in hydric soil, contained diverse landscape with lakes, riparian forests, freshwater marshes, vernal pools. And the wetlands kept declining, but the rapid decline eventually slowed. Okay. Next up is, why did they start declining? Can anyone guess? I pretty much went over it already, but let's see. Dr. Lazcano, yes. Bingo, you're right. The Europeans. Like I said before, they arrived. There were so many wetlands, but with their arrival, they heavily altered the land. However, it wasn't only them that were the cause. I mean, what they were doing paved the way for almost every cause, but like other scenarios, there are other causes. So, what else uh, started the decline? Another factor is drought. Recently in California, as we know, we've been going through a rather large drought in the past like 15 years or so. And California is a relatively dry state in general, and the Central Valley is extremely dry. So, because of this drought, wetland areas in the Central Valley are shrinking, causing a decline in bird populations. And bird populations are shrinking, for example, stated in the High Country News article that was released in 2016 that said in the past 2 years, the number of sites where California mallards nests has dropped by 46%, which is due to the loss of wetland habitat. And this is because with less wetlands, it means more overcrowding or of other wetlands, which can cause disease. All right, so moving on to the did people care back then? No, of course not. People didn't care about the wetlands back then. They started caring later on. But what people cared about was right when they got to the Central Valley, or the first settlers, was mainly agriculture. And according to the book that I mentioned earlier, California's pursuit to be an agricultural empire almost destroyed all of its wetlands. Um, which, where is a lot of California's agriculture? Bingo, you guessed it, the Central Valley. So, like I said earlier, the Europeans found out soon enough that the land in the valley was rich with nutrients and perfect for growing crops. Any wetlands were either drained or made into channels, and dams stopped the flooding of rivers. So, no wetlands that would usually form from flooding that didn't happen anymore. And this was made all for ag. So, like I said, uh, we were selfish. An example in Sacramento, a wetland plan was developed a while ago, not to help out the animals, but because the birds were attacking the farmers' rice fields. So, and they decided to make more wetlands so that the birds didn't attack the farmers' rice fields. So, it essentially helped out the wetland species, but it was for economic value and not ecological value. Okay, so comeback. Yes, wetlands are making a comeback in the Central Valley, and you might want to know how they're making this comeback. And it's through laws, regulation, monitoring programs, acts such as the California Environmental Quality Act, public participation, and then according to an assessment project done by the USGS, the Wetland Reserve Program, which has done a lot in restoration, and since 1990, the Wetland Reserve Program has helped restore about 29,000 hectares of wetlands in the Central Valley, which is huge. And then they've also worked with hydrology, and that's been heavily modified to support waterfowl, so migrating birds. So things are looking up for the Central Valley and wetlands. It's going to take a lot of work, but with the help of monitoring and programs, um, it's definitely looking better. So thank you, and I'll see you guys next week.